If you're watching this video, either you have a heart condition, you know somebody who has a heart condition, or you're generally interested in heart health. So one question that often comes to mind is coffee good or bad for heart health? On the one hand, it has lots of antioxidants and it improves alertness. On the other hand, it temporarily increases blood pressure. So what's the bottom line? Is it good for you or bad for you? That's exactly what we're going to talk about in this video. Before we jump in, who am I to be talking about this? My name is Igor. I'm the author of an Amazon best-selling book called High Blood Pressure Reversal Secrets. In addition to that, I run an online personal training company called Fitness Solutions Plus that helps people improve their heart health. So without further ado, let's jump in. When I make recommendations in regards to nutrition, I like to look at what the research has to say as opposed to just coming up with theories out of thin air with no backup. So let's look at what the research actually has to say. When it comes to heart health, you can study a lot of different things. You can study cholesterol, you can study triglycerides, you can study inflammation, but here's the thing. We hope that these blood markers have a strong relationship to what really matters: heart attacks, strokes, and death. But the research on cholesterol, including LDL and HDL, triglycerides, inflammation, is still highly controversial. In which direction is it going? Does high cholesterol cause heart disease, or does disease cause high cholesterol? And the same applies to all the others. So let's not look at what are called soft endpoints like cholesterol, triglycerides, and inflammation. Let's look at hard endpoints like actual heart attacks and strokes, where we don't need an intermediary variable to look at things. And there's tons of research that exists on that. In one meta-analysis, which is a study of multiple studies, over 1.2 million people were researched, and they were categorized based on their quantity of coffee consumption. In this meta-analysis, they found that people who consumed an average of 1.5 cups of coffee per day had an 11% lower risk of heart attacks and strokes compared to people who didn't drink coffee at all. Pretty interesting. People who drank an average of 3.5 cups of coffee per day actually had an even larger reduction in risk of heart attacks and strokes. They had a 15% reduction. So then you're thinking, is more better? Well, they tried to investigate that as well, and they saw that people who drank 5 cups of coffee a day only had a 5% reduced risk of heart attacks and strokes. What does that tell us? That there is a sweet spot. Somewhere around 3 to 4 cups of coffee per day for most people happens to be the sweet spot of where do they experience the greatest reduction of heart attacks. It's not just a point of diminishing returns, it's an inflection point. At some point it improves, and at some point, and after that point, it decreases. And that point is about 3.5 cups of coffee per day. Maybe you want to alternate one day of 3 and one day of 4, one day of 3 and one day of 4. So what's the overall message here? That in otherwise healthy people, coffee consumption has a moderate beneficial effect on heart health. And again, this is measured based on heart attacks and strokes, not some kind of intermediary marker that isn't quite that proven. Now you're wondering, coffee increases heart rate and blood pressure. Doesn't that increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes? Well, there's lots of research that actually looks at coffee and blood pressure in people with existing high blood pressure. What it shows is that coffee's effects on high blood pressure are temporary. Yes, it increases blood pressure, but only for a few hours, and eventually comes back to normal. But again, what's the problem with high blood pressure? It's not that in and of itself, it's the risk of heart attacks and strokes. So the real question is, does coffee or caffeine consumption lead to an increase in the heart attacks and strokes in this population, in the population of people who are hypertensive or have high blood pressure? And the answer, fortunately, is no. In this population, it's not, coffee has neither a favorable effect nor a deleterious effect, nor a negative effect. So because of that, coffee is fine, even for people who have high blood pressure in moderation, which for this population, I would say is probably a little bit less than people who don't have high blood pressure. So maybe 2 or 3 cups a day instead of 3 to 4 cups a day. And again, I want to emphasize, this whole research is in otherwise healthy populations. On a person-by-person basis, this might be different. Coffee may be good for you or may be bad for you. For example, you want to be careful if you have osteoporosis. In a small segment of people with osteoporosis, coffee causes a very accelerated decrease in bone density. In the majority of people with osteoporosis, no problem. But in the small segment of people who have what's called a TT-VDR genotype, it does have a large negative effect on bone density. And I talk about that in another video, linked in the description below. What about people with anxiety? Coffee can potentially make anxiety worse, and that's actually fairly well established. So in these people, it might improve your heart health, but not very good for your mental health. So you have to weigh the pros and cons of that. Of course, it goes without saying that if somebody suffers from insomnia, they have a hard time sleeping, well, insomnia has a negative relationship to heart health. Now, in people who are insomniacs, maybe the coffee consumption will have a negative effect on their heart health because it's making their sleep even worse. Likewise, in people who suffer from heartburn, one of the culprits for heartburn, one of the causative factors is acidity in the stomach, or the lack of the flap closing. So it's called the esophageal sphincter, the flap that separates the stomach from the esophagus. So in people with heartburn, coffee is not that good. Might be fine for their heart health, but not very good for their digestive health. And another category of people for whom coffee is not that great is people who suffer from something called IBS, or irritable bowel syndrome. Coffee makes things worse in this population as well. So again, might be good for their heart health, but not very good for their digestive health. And this will actually cause pain. So on a population basis, with an otherwise healthy population and even a hypertensive population, coffee has a mild positive impact on heart health. But on a case-by-case basis, you have to see what other health conditions you bring to the table that may make coffee not so good for you specifically. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. It will help you learn when I publish more videos about both coffee and heart health, and it will help other people with heart conditions understand what to do in terms of exercise and nutrition to improve their heart health. Thank you and goodbye.